Okay, Friday, October 15th, I'm Tom Novak. This is your Adiseo and Novak weather update. Okay, we're focusing on the second half of October, but let's just take a look back. This is the drought monitor now that came out yesterday showing the issues that we have across the country as far as drought is concerned. And basically, the western half of the country is experiencing drought. And of course, the red and deep red areas are severe or extreme drought. And that hasn't really changed much over the last several years, by the way. The good news is that portions of the northern plains and central plains, the drought has eased in those areas of the country because they've been getting plenty of rain recently. And then, of course, the eastern half of the country, basically east of the Mississippi River, not experiencing much, if any, drought at all. They've had plenty of rain in those areas of North America and the United States. This is the departure from normal now of precipitation over the first half of October. Okay, this is the anomalies. And like I had mentioned, the real good news here is that much of the northern plains and portions of the upper Midwest, then extending north into southern Canada, such as southern Manitoba, they've had plenty of rain there in the last 2 weeks. Some areas 2 to 3 to 4 inches in excess of what they would usually get. So, yes, the rain is soaking in, which is great news over the northern plains. They desperately need rain up there, and they've been getting it. And then, of course, scattered areas and pockets of heavy rain over the central portions of the U.S., portions of the Corn Belt, and then we were expecting significant rain over a good chunk of the southeast, and that has panned out for the most part. What's a bit of a surprise is how dry it is in the northeastern U.S., such as New England and portions of the mid-Atlantic, but I think that's going to change. I'll show you that here in just a second. All right, here's the river of air at 30 to 35,000 feet, the jet stream. These are the steering winds in our atmosphere. It's very important that we look at this. This is from the European Computer Model Guidance. And look at what happens this weekend and into early next week. A pretty deep trough develops over the eastern U.S. This is going to allow cool Canadian air to funnel south into about the eastern half of the country as we go into later this weekend, especially early next week, as a ridge develops out west. And of course, a ridge usually means warm air beneath that ridge. Now, as we go through time, this would be middle portions of next week now, and then as we get into latter portions of next week and next weekend, this is pretty important. This is right around the October 23 and October 24th time frame. Look at this fetch of air with the jet stream coming out of Canada and digging south into the eastern half of North America. If this pans out, this tells me that some pretty cold Canadian air, really the first of the season, is going to be dragged south into much of not only eastern Canada, but the eastern half of the United States as a pretty strong ridge develops out west, and that would mean warm air from the Rockies on west. And we get a little bit closer and we look at the jet stream now over southern Canada and the United States. Here's that deep trough now later this weekend and into early next week over the eastern half of the United States, especially the Great Lakes, as a ridge builds out west. That means warm air out there. And then going into next week, a disturbance comes across the central and northern U.S. Hopefully that brings some rain. It won't be a lot, but it could bring some rain to the upper Midwest. And then we get into that deep trough that starts to develop right here as we get into next weekend. So that would be October 23 and 24. Deep trough develops over the eastern U.S. And good news out west, by the way, as another trough digs in California. That means there's going to be some rain out on the west coast. Speaking of rain, this is from the GFS Computer Model Guidance, and this is the rain expected over the next 14 days. And you could see portions of the northeastern U.S. It would include the mid-Atlantic, or at least the northern portions of the mid-Atlantic, but more specifically New England. They're going to get quite a bit of rain the way it appears. Here you see it right here. So yeah, it's been dry up there, but I think that's going to change. The southeastern U.S., especially Florida, should get some rain, but not much in the way of rain over southern Canada, the prairies of southern Canada extending into the central and northern plains of the United States, and even as far east as the Corn Belt. I'm just not seeing much rain at all over the next 14 days. There could be some scattered pockets like you see here over the southern portions of Minnesota, but in general, much of the heart of the United States and southern Canada, just not much rain, which actually could be good for those that need to get in to the fields here in portions of the United States and southern Canada. Here's the temperature outlook now from Novak Weather and Adiseo. And with the jet stream surging north into Canada, in the western portions of Canada, and then digging south into the eastern United States, you can see I'm expecting some colder Canadian air to dig south into the eastern half of the United States. That means frost and freezes, I think, are a pretty good bet over much of the eastern U.S., especially as you head north into the Great Lakes and then into eastern Canada and the upper Midwest as a ridge and some warm air builds out west. As far as precipitation is concerned, well, there's just not much expected over the heart of the United States. I think anywhere west of the Appalachians, you can see it here, for the most part is going to be dry. There may be some areas that don't get any precipitation at all over the next 2 weeks. Meanwhile, the coasts, California, Oregon, Washington, the northeastern U.S., which would include New England, and then, of course, Florida, like we mentioned. I think these are the areas that are going to experience some significant rain over the next 2 weeks. All right, that's your 14-day outlook from Adiseo Novak Weather. Thank you for joining me, everybody. Have a great rest of your October.